This week on Podular Modcast.
I used to only make friends with people who had the fear. I called it the fear.
Hello and welcome back to Podular Modcast. My name is Tim Held, and yes, I am currently in a bandana phase. And if you absolutely hate it, just give it some time and I'll be on to the next thing. Anyways, we have a great show for you this week. We have Jeremy Blake on, aka Red Means Recording. This episode is long overdue, but there's no time like the present. We do get serious, we talk about mental health, and we do talk shop as we are both in a similar situation with what we do creatively and professionally. So yeah, it's a great chat, and we're going to get into that momentarily. But first, I want to show you some new cool kits that I got. But before we get to that, let's talk about these two modules. If you're a longtime listener of the podcast, then you know that the 4MS stereo triggered sampler and the 4MS dual looping delay have been some of my favorites for a very long time. In fact, the stereo triggered sampler was the workhorse behind probably the first 10 or 15 remote performance videos that I did. So why do I bring these up? Well, you know, I'm always trying to shrink my kit down because I'm always going mobile and battery powered. And while these things are great modules, they are kind of big. So I was very, very, very excited when I saw that 4MS was releasing the DIY looping delay. So it's not the dual looping delay. So we got a spare, what is that, probably 4 HP there. And then also the DIY sampler. This is just basically half of the stereo triggered sampler. And what's really cool is they created these kits where all the SMD, the surface mount devices are already done and on a separate PCB that you plug in after you have soldered all of the through-hole components. So last week I announced that I am doing music videos for people, and I've had a lot of people reach out, and it's been really awesome to start to work with different people out there. It's been a lot of fun going out and shooting stuff and trying to collaborate on a vision and then realize that vision. So if you're interested in anything like that, then hit me up on Instagram or the emails at podmodcast@gmail.com. I of course want to say thank you to all the show sponsors: Patchworks Seattle, After Later Audio, 4MS, and Novation. I recently made a cover song of the Talking Heads' This Must Be the Place, Naive Melody, because that's Hannah's favorite song in the whole world. And so I made a cover for her for a birthday present, and I am actually just going to play a little snippet right here. I'm not going to include my vocals because it's not that great, but I just wanted you to hear how I used the Summit on the track, because I got a lot of really cool synth voices on it. Okay, I know I didn't technically play that melody, the wee-oo one, perfectly accurate. It's because I was trying to play guitar with it, and it was just easier to do that way, and then I ended up not using the guitar, but who cares? So you could say that the melody that I played for the song was a little naive. I'd like to also say thank you to everybody who supports me on Patreon. If you would like to help keep the LEDs blinking over here at PodMod, head to patreon.com/PodularModcast, link in the show description. I do giveaways randomly of all sorts of stuff. It's on a first come, first served basis, and within the next week or two, I'm going to be giving away some cassettes, some posters, and maybe some patch cables. Another way you can support Podular Modcast is by collaborating with me on a music video. Just send me the track that you want me to make a video around, and maybe some ideas of what kind of shots you want and the style and whatever else you can think of. And yeah, you can help keep the show floating in that regard as well.
And that actually perfectly segues into this week's featured artist, who is Morte de Abbey. And this video, if you're watching, is the video that I made for their track called "And Hangs the Earth on Nothing" off of the upcoming album Orbital Mechanics, which drops October 4th. Link in the show description. I had a lot of fun making this video. We wanted to get something that was gritty and kind of fast-paced in an urban area, so I went out and shot a bunch of stuff around my hometown of Tacoma and a little bit in Seattle, and then I put this together, so please enjoy. Once again, that was Morte d'Abbey with the track And Hangs the Earth on Nothing off the upcoming album Orbital Mechanics. Links in the show description. And remember, if you would like to work with me on a video, then hit me up. Or if you just would like to be a featured artist, then send me a WAV file or a download code through any of the various online modes of communication. All right, let's get into this chat with Jeremy. Podular Modcast, as always, is brought to you by the lovely folks over at Patchworks. Patchworks is more than just a synthesizer, music gear shop. They're building a community by connecting you to the joy of music with workshops, classes, live music events, and friendly, knowledgeable staff. They are there to help you with wherever it is you are at in your music making journey. Located in the Wallingford neighborhood in Seattle, stop by Patchworks showroom to play with your favorite music gear and join their community. And if you don't live in the Pacific Northwest region of the world, then head over to patchworks.com, patchwerks.com, where they have not just the latest and greatest in modular, but all sorts of synthesizer gear, as well as home studio equipment. Once again, that is patchworks.com, patchwerks.com.
It's mostly going to be the problem of me like losing my train of thought. Like that might happen now and then.
Hey,
like
I think I heard you mention in a video once you had ADD, and you're in good company. So same here.
Okay.
So yeah. we're gonna be a mess, but that's all right.
Perfect.
I think we're gonna do good work here.
Okay.
Jeremy, this is long time coming. We've chatted here and there. We've met at some Seattle events and stuff, but yeah, I'm excited to actually have a nice sit down with you. We'll get into this, but I just kind of want to lead, do a little preface or something. I don't know. I've been very, very intrigued and into what you've been doing lately with your videos by adding a little comedy and even a little bit of politics into it. And that's going to be a whole bag. But before we get to that, let's start nice and light. Did you grow up in Washington State? Are you for the most Washington? Part. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I grew up once we moved here from the East Coast. I was born in like Virginia, but I didn't spend much time there. Okay. I grew up in Tacoma. And then
that's where I live now.
Oh shit. Okay. Awesome. How long? Well, I know you've been there for a while. How are you liking it?
I actually love it. So I was in Seattle first. My wife was in Seattle for 20 years, and we wanted to buy a house, and we couldn't afford Seattle, even though my wife at the time worked for the city of Seattle. So we came down here, and I was a little bummed.
So fucking sad.
I know. I was bummed at first, but now that I'm here, I actually feel way more connected, and like I feel like it's a little bit more my speed. I like Tacoma a lot. It's big enough to have stuff to do, small enough to where you can find parking, even on a Saturday night. And I don't know. I just feel like Seattle has jumped the shark a bit. It's got this reputation, I think, around the world, or at least the country, of being this like, super progressive haven, but it's just not that. Like a lot of the residents are that, but it's just money there. And
especially just as an adult, we do want to be able to like live in a way that feels like we have some kind of agency over our life, I guess. And when you live in like a really expensive city, that is kind of robbed of you. I feel like you no longer really have as much agency as you may think you do. You have a lot of cool things you can do. And I mean, I loved living in big cities for a really long time, but at some point, if your eyes turn towards the idea of like living in a house and that kind of thing, it's the big cities are just not going to work out these days.
Yeah, no, that's true. And, like I said, I'm really happy that we're here now. Like yesterday's my wife's birthday. So while she was at work, I built her a fire pit in the yard and hung some lights. Ooh. And last year for her birthday, I put in some big troughs with some clumping bamboo. So it's just cool to have like your own space to kind of work at
Absolutely. Yeah. Wait,
making it your own.
You put in bamboo?
Yeah, so I put them in, those big, like, kind of oblong farm troughs that are like
Oh,
corrugated.
okay. It's contained. All right.
Yeah, and it's clumping as well. So the clumping doesn't get as big, and it's not as likely to spread. And so I planted it up high, so it's there. The bottom of the plant is probably 2.5 feet off the ground, and then those things, the tubs are on top of some concrete. So I think we're good. But yeah, that was the first question everybody asked when I said that. Like, wait,
that's funny. Bamboo? Yeah, everyone's like, "Oh no."
Mm-hmm.
we not to just turn this into like gardening talk, but when we lived in South Seattle for about 5 years before we moved out to Duvall, where I am now.
What part of South Seattle are you in?
I guess you would kind of call it Hillman City. Basically, it was off of MLK on a little street called Morgan, and it's right by a U-Haul. It was very chic, and if you walked like probably like 4 or 5 blocks towards like Union, like Washington, excuse me, you got this little strip called Hillman City where we spent a lot of time. There was like 2 of our favorite bars were there. We'd always walk down there with our dog and have a beer or 2. The whole point of bringing this up was the fact that like we had like blackberry there was just like insane. Yes. Like it was just like absolutely nuts. And down here, or excuse me, not down here, but over here in Duvall, we still have like a ton of blackberry, but we can control it a little bit better. Back there, it was like creeping in from other places like around us who didn't take care of it. Here, it's like, yeah, I've got my what does he call it? It's like a shearer, it's like a battery powered shearer.
Oh, like a scythe or a.
No, it's like excuse me, it's a hedge trimmer. Excuse me, it's basically a automatic hedge trimmer. So yeah, get to use those like those tools that kind of growl and stuff like that, and make you feel like a man.
Yeah, I just trimmed. We have this holly tree in our front yard, and it was getting out of hand. So I took my my first crack at trimming a holly bush, and actually how'd it go? Pretty good. Yeah,
nice.
Good.
Yeah,
my wife wants to get rid of it, but it's really cool to have a holly tree in your yard when it's Christmas and it's snowing.
Yes,
it's like look, it's a Christmas thing.
Yep,
but. Every the rest of the year it's not the most beautiful thing, and she is a horticulturalist, so she wants to to do better stuff. Yeah,
we have a small holly tree in ours. It's very out of place. There's nothing else like it.
Yeah, they're very specific looking
area. And my partner was Brian. He was like, we should get rid of it. It's like totally not like everything else. And I'm like, but Christmas.
So yeah, we're the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was just such a long. I'm so sorry, audience. Maybe I'll edit some of the really hyper specific geography out. But okay, so you grew up in Tacoma. What part of Tacoma did you grow up in? Let's get even more hyper specific.
Yeah, I was in the north end pretty much. I went to a middle school called Jason Lee Middle School. I lived right by there too, and then I went to high school called Stadium High School, which is down on the way towards the water, or down on the way towards downtown. So I was living sort of around there. I'm not sure what part of the city you're in.
Yeah, I'm down south. I'm like Fern Hill, Lincoln District area. So when did you leave after graduation and go to college somewhere, or?
I tried. Yeah, I mean, I was a flute player. That's what I had done for my whole upbringing as my vocational thing. I didn't really do any other type of academics or sports or anything like that. So that was my thing. And so I went to the University of Redlands in California for a year on the idea that I was going to do music performance with the flute, and didn't really work out. I didn't go back, and eventually I went to the Seattle Art Institute for their audio production and audio engineering course.
Yeah, I was looking at that in high school. I almost did that, but yeah, I ended up.
It was okay. I mean, that's one of those weird for-profit, universities that
it seemed kind of like
there anymore.
Right. Yeah. It seemed like maybe it was a little bit shady, or I don't know. Yeah. Like I've heard different things about it, but okay.
Yeah,
so
it was just like a sort of a predatory, for-profit university kind of thing.
Okay. So, all right. I usually start with like people's, history of getting into music. So, sounds like you started like fourth grade when you started flute. Is that about when people start getting into band and all that stuff? Or
Yeah, like whatever middle school is. So I guess, yeah, maybe even I guess it was elementary school. So I was a baby. We
Mhm.
had a flute in our house, and there was like band call out. So they were like, well, my parents were like, you have a flute. You can have a flute because your aunt has one. And so I took her flute and started learning
That's
that.
usually how it goes. Like,
Yep.
well, there's one
Yep.
laying around, so that's what you get.
People talk a lot about like free will and determinism and like, oh, well, you chose to live this life and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I didn't choose to play the flute. It was literally the only thing we had around and it changed my
Yeah.
entire life. So
Yeah, that's
talk to me
crazy.
about free will.
So my wife wanted to play saxophone and she ended up having to play flute because
Mm,
of the same reason. They had one and they
hmm
didn't have a lot of money and saxophones are expensive. Um, yeah.
They're big ones. Yeah, they're big boys.
So when does music outside of, classical and like band and flute stuff, like, cause going from flute
Yeah.
to having as many synthesizers as I see on your wall and doing what you do now
Yeah.
professionally,
That's
like,
only one
was there a
side of the room.
particular, yeah, right. Was there a
There
particular
was actually.
artist or something or?
Oh, well, I mean, so I'd say it was a combination of things. My dad had some tapes or CDs of some bands that became rather formative to me. Depeche Mode's Violator was one of them. He had that on tape, I believe, on cassette. And I remember being obsessed with that. Um, he also had Tori Amos, Under the Pink. And I was also rather obsessed with that one. So there was two sides to this. One of them was the electronic side, and really like just being in love with what the Depeche Mode album sounded like, and two was moving from flute to being able to play something that was more appropriate for electronic music, which was keyboards. And the Tori Amos stuff really helped me with that because I wanted to learn how to play her songs. But the culmination of the two was the fact that like, or a big part of it was the fact that in middle school there was a jazz band that the band director had as like another thing that he did. And I joined up with that, and it was a smaller ensemble. It was like probably like 10 people. I guess that's not small, but it was smaller than the regular band. And
Mhm.
he would write songs or bring these like sort of fusion jazz songs to us, and we would perform them. And he had two Yamaha SY-77s, and I was obsessed with them. I was absolutely obsessed with these things. And he was a super cool guy, and he like noticed that I was super interested in them, and was like, you can mess with these after school if you want to.
Oh,
And so
nice.
I started playing with those and learned a lot about. Well, I mean, I don't know how much I actually learned, but I I remember it being like I was I the fact that I could like sequence all of these sounds in one thing felt
Hmm.
very very powerful to me.
Right.
And I
Totally. Yeah.
think yeah, that really hasn't changed since then.
I think sometimes like, you said like, not sure how much you really learned or something, but I feel like there is something very, very valuable about maybe like, I don't know if you had access to the manual or if you were even like interested in that, but just getting the hands on for a
Yeah.
while. And then once you start kind of actually learning the terms and stuff, you have a little bit of a sense memory to base them off of. Like, I think that's
Yeah, I think
absolutely
that's right.
essential.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, really, a lot of this stuff isn't like the technology aspect of this stuff is not terribly difficult to iterate on because, like, obviously, there's these certain concepts, like you said, these certain ideas and concepts that once you understand like the basics of them, you'll be able to ask yourself or know immediately like, oh, I should look into whether or not this thing does this way or whatever.
right.
um,
Yeah.
and, and that language can extend to different items. Obviously there's a language built into Eurorack, there's a language built into a lot of music production.
Something I noticed, and I've heard other people, agree with this or say it independently, is having some synthesizer experience, like with desktop and whatnot. Like you get to know like what your machines do and everything, and you know what a filter is, and you know what like ADSR is. But I feel like after I got into modular for about like 3 years, and then went back to a desktop for the first time, it was like,
Was
oh,
it weird?
well, it was easy. Like it seemed just
Oh,
way
sure.
more intuitive because, the signal chain in modulars, you just make it up as you go pretty much. And with this, like you could just easily identify everything and like, oh, this is how this works. And, so I thought now I've been, having fun with this, this Summit behind me on the wall. That's
a great piece of kit.
I think really, really
modular
fun
really
synth.
modular really knocked loose a lot of stuff that I just hadn't even thought about in regular synths. I remember going back to Arturia Pigments, the VST that I primarily use for my synth in soft synths, after working with like maths and some other like quintessentially modular concepts where like you have like self-modulate or things that can like be modulated by it themselves, or modulating modulation, I guess, is a really big one. And being like, oh wait, this does that too. And with a Summit, you can do that. You can have an LFO modulate another LFO.
Right.
You can start getting interesting with that kind of thing, and that's very powerful. Like I think that's a very cool thing to knock loose in your head.
Total. And that, like what you just mentioned with like the LFO modulating the LFO on Summit, like that is like the exact type of thing that my eyes would just gloss over. Like if I tried to understand that pre-modular,
if you hadn't, you'd be like, why would I want to do that? And in modular, it's like, it's right there. It's like, hey, why don't you do this?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And do like 700 more things and then, spend 6 hours and not actually make music. I'm curious, you go to the Art Institute. So after this, like, from there to where you are now, like, what is that path like? Because you're in a pretty unique situation.
Yeah. In between then, when I was at Redlands, I was pretty much bunking off for most of the time and stealing time in their studio there. I had a lot of friends that were into making. I was really into the psytrance music scene there. There was a big psytrance desert party scene in that area. And so I was like getting really into that kind of like production mentality, like, like, let me learn how to make psytrance. This is fucking cool. So I was already starting to work pretty hard at trying to understand genres. I was working in Fast Tracker at that point. I had gotten introduced to that for some reason. I don't even know what the class was. I do not remember why this happened, but in my senior year, there was some class I took, some elective that I got introduced to a tracker by the teacher. They showed us how to use a tracker, and I was like, okay, well, this is even cooler than the SY-77. I can just do this all right here. And so by the time I was in the Art Institute, I was working a lot in like FL Studio and Sony Acid, SoundForge Acid, whoever was making that at the time. And started working a bunch of random jobs after that. Like I didn't really, music was a hobby. It was a passion. I wasn't doing anything with it professionally, outside of like DJing. And it was just a lot of small things that happened over a long period of time. A lot of self-directed, how can I make music better? How can I express myself better? Like, this is really, really fun, but it doesn't sound right. How do I make it sound better? I was very, very interested in making very specific types of music that I had encountered while DJing. So these like highly produced, really, really well done, like techno, house and down tempo tracks. And those became sort of a blueprint for me to like try. And I was just like emulating these styles and wondering why it didn't sound right. And, so that went on for a really long time, like a really long time. And, I picked up some jobs here and there doing, work that sort of used my, my degree. I was working as a audio tech for Boz Skaggs for a summer or two.
No shit.
And
wow.
Yeah. I had a friend in San Francisco who was his tour manager, and we became friends through my DJing. It just got pulled into that. It was really, really wild.
That's funny.
So, eventually, I'm trying to figure out if there's anything cogent to this. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was just like, let's do weird shit. I ended up getting an OP1, with the Teenage Engineering OP1, and then I fell in love with it. I was using it all the time.
Now that you did a video that was kind of your breakout video, is that right? Am I
So
remembering this
that
right?
yeah,
Or-
that was weird. So I was using YouTube primarily as a means of putting out art. I was like, I was making my own music. I was doing music videos. I was really big into photography at that point. So with photography became an interest in videography and just shooting a lot of weird shit and putting it on YouTube. And I don't have any fucking idea why I decided to do this, but I did end up filming me using the OP1. I think maybe I was just drawn to it because it was such a visual device, and drawn to filming it because it was such a visual device. And I noticed that had done really well. It had done, it was getting views that were far beyond what I would have expected. And so I was like, maybe I should do that again. And I did it again, and then it just took off. So those were the thing that basically made the channel, were those original videos.
You didn't really have like a grand plan of becoming like one of the handful of like authorities to go to on YouTube. Like you've taught me how to use so many things,
Yeah, it's such a weird thing, and I'm in a very like tumultuous place with it emotionally right now. I have some personal stuff I need to really like work out.
I can tell by your videos, and I think that was one of the things that was really drawing me in to wanting to talk to. I mean, I've been wanting to talk to you for a while, anyways, but after just the last few months and the way you've been like it, I'm attracted to it because I feel like I identify heavily with what I feel like you're going through. And
how so? Tell me what are you going through? What's going on?
Well, I mean, it's hard to not, I don't want to sound like complainy or anything, but you get to this.
I'm in the same way. I don't want to sound complainy either, but like not to derail, but it's like you have these feelings and they're real, and you start to like think of ways to tell them to people, and you're like, wow, I sound like a little bitch. Like people are going to look at me and be like, you sound like, why are you complaining? You're such a little bitch about this. And I'm like, but that doesn't change the fact that I feel this way. It's like,
totally.
So I'm curious, like what is it that you're identifying with? And maybe we can kind of like talk about it a little bit. Cause I'm curious.
Well, I think, there's a few things, but a lot of what has pulled me in and kind of what's made me take a shine to your recent, modified approach, I think is, I've just had, one, I started the podcast because, I wanted to start a podcast, but I also wanted, I knew that trying to get people to listen to your music or check out your art was like, it's almost impossible, and there was no real like regular podcast about this stuff. And I was just super into it, but I was really like thinking, well, if I have a successful podcast, then like by the transitive property, my music will also be popular. And, like I've gotten super into, making these like remote performance short films. I love filming stuff as well. I love, I've made some really weird, like short, absurd horror sci-fi movies about
nice.
modulars, modules. And so, like, and again, don't want to sound complainy, but it seems like it's that I haven't seen I haven't seen even close to the amount of change that I would have expected with my art, based off of the listenership of the podcast, which then starts making me think like, oh, maybe my art is shit, and like, and you can just kind of spin out because you really only hear from, you don't hear from a lot of people online unless they want to say some stuff that maybe isn't so fun to hear, or, most like, I don't reach out to the podcasts that I listen to and just say, hey, I love what you do and stuff. So like, I know people are checking it out and stuff, but it's just like, I think it's, again, I feel so weird talking about this publicly, but so listener, you're listening to two people in weird, unique situations who are both very lucky. And I'm sure we both are equally gracious, have gratitude. And, but also I think it's just like I expected something and it didn't happen that way. And now I'm just like learning like, oh yeah, expectation is a dangerous thing.
I guess the issue is like, okay, so in this world, like, especially living in America, we have we have to sort of, well, we have expectations put on us to, grow up, go to school, and go to get a job. Okay, like that's still a thing. Maybe a little less going to school these days, but that's still a thing. And then some of us aren't really good at that. like we,
totally.
some of us aren't good at maintaining that particular type of thing. Every job that I've had has imploded um, in some way that has been, my fault to an extent. Um, but also I do find that there is a sort of theme, a running theme that going to work for other people, um, mostly doesn't work for me.
Same
Like,
here.
It
I was
doesn't work.
just thinking about it the other day. I was just like, I am not a great employee
Yeah.
because like I have bursts of greatness and then I just have times where I'm like useless. And I have that, in all walks of life, but when it's at your job where you have to show up every day
Every
and you just,
day for
like,
for more time than you get to spend for yourself.
yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you that's a very cogent way of bringing it up, because like what it really comes down to is like, okay, like you're expected to always be on and you're expected to always be productive. If
Mm-hmm.
you aren't, if you fuck up, if you need time to yourself or whatever, if you need to be down, then you are considered not like you're going to lose your job basically. Like you can't do that. You can't
Right.
be you can't be valuable.
And you
So
might be able to do that like every once in a while, but not as often as a lot of people need,
and sometimes people need it a lot more than other people. And so when I had a job, I don't know, I just almost sound like I was like, that's what I just sounded like. I thought I was going to do there. I thought I was going to
Oh
do
my
some
God, that's
down with the
hilarious.
sickness.
I've been doing burps like that for the last few months, and my wife is so over it. Yeah, but it's just like,
That's cute. You just gotta get her into. It's gotta like get a healthy competition with the burp thing going on, and then maybe you can have that happen.
I'll pitch it to her.
Okay. Let's see. So I had a job doing video editing for a company in Bellevue before. Well, for a long time. It was like 4 years, maybe, or 5 years. I'm not sure. It felt like a long time. It must have been like 4 or 5 years. And then it was bad. Like it was emotionally bad. It was a bad place. It was very emotionally abusive, is what I kind of came to realize. And I got fired, like under some very weird circumstances, right as the pandemic kind of was kicking in.
Oh my God.
And I realized, well, I was in a great position because I had the channel and I had a Patreon already. And I had people who were like, hey, well, why don't you teach lessons? And that's what I ended up doing. That's what I'm doing right now, about music production, which is a whole nother can of worms in terms of
For
like
sure.
questioning your abilities and your worth.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah.
But what? So it's like, okay, well, now I am working for myself. I don't the production, the means of production, the labor that I'm not alienated from it anymore. I am that, and that that's what we want. We want to feel as if we are in control of our destiny and of our day to day, of our time, of our energy, so that what we put in is what we get back from it. Now it gets complicated even more because if you're making content like we are, we aren't just in control of that. Like we are reliant on an audience,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
so I think that feeling that you're feeling, that sort of like, well, I'm putting a lot into this and I like it, and it's just not giving back what I would have expected, and now I have to decide like what that means. Is it me? is it is it is it the art that I'm making? Does it shit or is it the algorithm? That's a lot of people like to blame the algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely struggling with the like, well, no, it's just it's me. Like it's like the way that I have grown into this, and apart from the original content that I make, is no longer it's no longer a tenable thing. Like it's just not working out. So there's a lot. It's complicated. I don't know where the I don't know how to fix this problem. Like how to
Mm-hmm.
make it feel as if what we're doing is viable. And I don't know if there is a way to always have it feel that way. Like I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
how to do
Totally.
that, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's a constant hustle, and it's
Yeah.
like it takes like so much work, and like my version of this, we're in a similar arena, but I feel like I have a lot easier because what we're doing right now is actually very enjoyable and easy for me because
Mm-hmm.
I love talking to people. And then, editing it all down is kind of a pain that, but I still like editing video, and I really do love doing the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's like the amount of you don't it's not consistent on what you get back, based off of what you put in. Like I can
Yes.
bust my ass as hard as I possibly can and work 14-hour days to make all
Mm-hmm.
this content that I'm putting out. And then that's like a week's worth of stuff. And okay, it didn't. And so I kind of wanted to follow this thread of like what I was identifying with, like,
Oh,
because
sure. Yeah.
that first part is just like I feel like that was my first hill, and I'm kind of over that. Like I do have
Okay.
people who like what I do artistically and stuff, and that's great. And I love what I
So
do artistically, and
would
so
you
that's
say
the
that
most important.
it's that feedback that really keeps you going? Like that's like getting like how much positive feedback do you need to feel as if you have succeeded with one of your endeavors?
Well, okay, let me operationally define success here, real
Okay.
quick, because s- luckily, as I've gotten older, I think it's just a function of age and experience, but the highest bar and the most important like success for me is to be happy with the thing, and to be I finished it. I had an idea, I did it, and it's finished, and I really like it. That's for me more rewarding than anything else. So
Okay.
I mentioned the thing about like, oh, people, I don't get the feedback on music and stuff. But what I've noticed is, as because the podcast has helped with my, art, people enjoying my art and stuff. But I find I don't get a whole lot of, I feel more kind of weird and bashful when I get like the praise that I thought I was like hoping for or something from
Hmm.
people. It can kind of make me feel a little squirmy, and I feel like
In
what
a
I've
Is it
realized.
like an imposter kind of way? Like
Yes,
you're like, wait,
totally.
is this
Yeah, yeah,
real? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I feel you. Yep.
Um, and I think what this itch that I've been trying to scratch my whole life by doing some sort of artistic endeavor, I think I've got that. I finally found what that is, and that is to kind of like be part of a community that full of people that I look up to and respect, and feel like I am one of them.
Mm,
And so I feel like I've done that to an extent that I'm very happy with. So in that
good.
regard, I am super stoked. So that was like the first like hurdle. But I feel like what I more see in what you're doing, I got really political during the the wake of the George Floyd murder and everything that was going on in
Mm-hmm.
Seattle. And I had a lot of people not super stoked about me getting political on the show.
Oh,
And then I've always inserted my brand of comedy, and I really I love goofing off. I love comedy.
yeah.
And I think a lot of the stuff I do is pretty funny. Of course I do, because it's my sense of humor. But I have noticed that when I do that, some people get pretty angry, and and they don't get it, because I do a really dry kind of like, I Tim and Eric was like
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
that's my
I feel you.
shit right there. So like
Yeah.
that can be kind of alienating, because people don't know if they're is this a joke? Am I the butt of the joke?
Am
And
I the joke? Yeah.
right. And to me, the funniest part is the confusion. So like that is actually funny to me. But yeah, I've just like, when I try to, I feel like there's been things that I have done where this is my self-expression and I'm using this mode, or this medium that I've got, this podcast and everything, to be self-expressive. And I feel
Yep.
like there's a lot of like, just keep bringing the talks with the people we want to hear from, and I know this isn't everybody out there. Like this is just the loud people and very few too. This doesn't even happen that often. It takes like one. You'll get one in a month and then you're like, I'm a fucking hack,
Yep.
And it's like, well, but you're still getting the same people listening. You just haven't heard from them. You're just hearing from the loud, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. You could actually, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but you could actually get a lot of positive feedback and it still wouldn't matter. You get that one, you're like, oh my God, he's right.
Totally. Absolutely.
All these other people don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually started this folder that I just call nice emails. And I just, screen grab anybody who says something nice, because of that aversion to that and my propensity to hang on the few negative. I build this folder just so I can, go like, and it's not like I go through and read it all the time, but I see that folder on the desktop and it reminds me, like, remember, like everything's fine. Cause you just get in your own head and everything. And, like, where do I go from here? And I'm a really, really bad business person. And to take, like, I want this to be my profession, but I feel weird about trying to do the things that are necessary to make it my profession because I feel weird about money. So it's just like, there's all these, like, it's just a constant swirl. And I feel like what I see in you, I feel like because you've got a way bigger audience and you've been doing this longer. I feel like what I see in you is like, fuck this. I'm going all in on me. And I'm just like, I can't try to juggle all of this stuff anymore. I'm going to do this. And if you don't like it, then I'm sorry that maybe I disappointed you, but like, I have to do this. That's what I get from your comedy and your political stuff. And it's been really inspiring because I've been in waves. Like maybe I should dial this down or maybe I should, I don't know. So that was a huge fucking ramble. Sorry.
No, it all was necessary.
Well, let me tie one bow on this. Just one just to put the cherry on top of all this. And everything that I've just kind of been talking about it right now with you for a publicly released thing. Now I also get a bunch of weird, swirly, like, do I sound like how do I sound? And then I get my head about this. Like, are people interested in hearing about this? Like, is this something I should share?
I think, well, I mean, I think that, like, first of all, what I think we're talking about here is anxiety. That's what I think we're talking about. And I think a lot of people suffer from anxiety. I think a lot of people experience anxiety because, one, I mean, there's anxiety disorders, right? Where you actually like are so predisposed to anxiety that it starts to affect your life in a negative way. And I that's been part of my life for a long time. And then there's the fact that the world is like, it will make you feel that way. Like it will do that to you because like you mentioned, like the housing thing earlier, it's like, there's so much uncertainty in everything, like, for all generations, I believe, like not knowing, how much money we're going to make and if we're going to be able to do this thing, or if we're going to be able to live in a part of the city that like means our commutes aren't like 3 hours long and all this stuff. Like, it's just one of those things that's built into being alive in the system that we are in. And I think it's just universal at this point. And I think one of the things that I am really grateful for, and that I don't want to give up necessarily, is that what I do for my living now, whatever the hell it is, at least I can say that I broke out of that like that some aspect of that like, you know, I should be able to theoretically control my existence in such a way that I can say, well, at least I'm not commuting to work to work for somebody that is not me, and like having
Same
to have
here. No, I
control
know
over my life.
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I was an electrician for 5 years.
Mhm.
You know, when I started the podcast, I was,
Mm.
starting work at 6 a.m. And editing and recording in the evenings, and, like hoping that I would one
Yep.
day get to where I'm at now.
Mhm.
Um, but then you get here, and then it's a whole other set of anxieties, and
So
you
that's the
realize
thing.
I'm
It's like,
still part of this capitalist structure, and it's
and
like, yeah.
it's so I hate it because you start talking about it, and like you said earlier, like you don't want to talk about it because like you worried that like people are going to judge you for it. When I was a kid, I saw all this stuff too. Like and it hasn't changed. So when I talk about it, sometimes I feel like I'm like 12 years old again, like, listening to Nine Inch Nails and just being like, oh, the world's so fucked up. It's like,
Right.
well, it
Yeah.
is. Like,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
still
Yeah. Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
So I there is there's not really I don't personally feel like I have any sense of security in what I do. And
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of pathological. Like I it's bad. I'm going to talk to a therapist about this soon. I haven't talked to a therapist in a really long time. But it's time for me to do this because it's
Mm-hmm.
gotten so bad that like, I'm having thoughts about my position in this world that I don't want to have. I don't think that they are
Yep.
productive to um living.
Do
um
you mean this world as in like the world, or like this world of our community, or?
Both. Like, well,
Yeah.
both,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I
both.
get it. I
Yeah.
get it.
I mean,
I mean,
so
I have like, what do they call it? What's the diagnosis? It sounds so impressively bad. Um, oh God, why am I blanking on this? It's basically like major depressive disorder. Um,
oh, okay. Sure.
so, and I've actually, for the first time in my life, have been kind of free of the deep valley of that due to
Good.
finding the right medication and having,
Good.
so I've been good there, but I've always just been a super self-analytical, spinning out kind of person. So like the thought
Right.
process is there, but just the suicidal ideation isn't. And I'm not saying that is what you are speaking to, but that's something that
That's what I'm speaking about. Yeah,
yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. Because
and that's right.
because
I
you
want
don't
to just, that I'm so sorry that you're going through that, because I went through that from 12 to 36, 7. So I know what that is, and it's a rough place to be in, and it's a hopeless place to be in a lot of time.
it's hopeless. That's what it
Mhm.
comes down to is that you don't see any way out
Mhm.
of the thing. And I mean, if you if you look at me right now, like you look at me in this room, I am surrounded by wonderful things. I'm in a wonderful house. I have 2 wonderful dogs and I have a wonderful partner. All that is wonderful. But when I think about like when I close my eyes and project into sort of this newosphere sort of mental space that I'm in, where like God, my views on YouTube are going down. I just like I feel like an idiot all the time. Like, what if I have to start going back to an office or something like that? And I'm like,
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't think I could handle that. Like, I
Same
don't
here.
think I could. Yeah. And so
I think yeah.
I'm like, well, uh, you start scrambling in your brain. You're like, well, shit. Like, there's literally like I don't know what I can do differently in this job. I don't know what I could. And part of this, by the way, is like, and I'm hoping that I can when I go to a therapist to talk to about this stuff that they'll be able to sort of let me see through some of these like what seem like impenetrable walls. But
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
part of me was like, oh well, I could always just go work for a music tech company, like that could be a
Right.
thing. But they are all fucking imploding. Like they are like Ableton is firing tons of people, Native Instruments is firing tons of people. Like everyone is like tightening their belts or getting pulled up or excuse me, pulled in by like private equity or venture
Mhm.
capitalism, and then they're going to
Mhm.
fire a bunch of people. Like
Yep.
I
I
don't
mean, so many of my friends outside of the music industry have gone through this
are getting
very
fucked.
recently.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a bad time to be a person in America.
Totally.
Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
not good.
Mhm.
And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter necessarily. It doesn't, I mean, I'm sure there are some people that are insulated from this, right? I'm sure there are some people that like for whatever reason, either like their, mental state is such that they don't have to worry about this, or their material predicament is such that they don't have to worry about this. But, you know, I'm pretty well off, and I am not feeling that. So it's like I don't know
So
where that's supposed to
totally.
happen. Like,
Well, I want to there's one thing that I noticed, like I listen to a lot of like, comedy, and just like I listen to a lot of podcasts that are just artists of all sorts just talking about their craft. And I've heard some of the
Mhm.
most famous, rich people on these shows talk about, that fear of it could all stop tomorrow. Like people who
Mm.
literally they could give like half their money away and still like retire in a villa somewhere, like you're fine.
So okay,
But
so
it's a
real quick though, like,
mentality.
but there is a thing that like the more you have, the worse it gets. Like the
Oh,
worse that
yeah,
mentality gets.
I think that's true for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So it's definitely a mind fuck. I want to ask you, so you mentioned you had like anxiety your whole
Yeah.
life. Is this your first, or is this like depression kind of morph of this ennui? Is this new, or
Yeah.
have you had, so depression is new for you
Well, I actually don't
as
have
far
a
as the
name for it yet.
hopelessness?
Oh, is that what you was? I mean, since you've been through this, that's you're like, yeah, that's what that is. I
Yeah.
guess,
So
yeah, I
it's
guess
funny. A lot of
hopelessness has
people
been
think
there.
depression is just being sad, but it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it could be irritable, or just, this is what I say about depression. It is coy, it is sneaky, and it's
Mm-hmm.
convincing,
Mm-hmm.
and it wants to keep you there. It
Mm-hmm.
wants you to stay there, and that hopelessness is the anchor. And there
Mm.
is nothing that you can be told, and
Nope.
I to make that stop. And I know this, but I still feel obliged to tell you something, even though I
Mm-hmm.
told you that hearing something,
No, it's good.
it
It's
can
good.
go,
Like,
like that hopelessness can evaporate. And the hopelessness is like the base of it for me was like, it will never go away.
yep.
And that was part of it. And I can tell
Yeah.
you from personal experience, after almost 20 years straight of it, it can go away. So I
Good.
just wanted to say that
That's
to you
important to
because,
hear.
well, yeah, because I mean, thank you for sharing such, personal things. But when I hear that, I hear, okay, we are in the same, we're in the same like unfortunate club, like this is a
Mm-hmm.
shitty club to be a
Mm-hmm.
part of, but I'm in this club, and I just felt I had to say that to you, So if there's
Thank you. I
anything that
really
you take
appreciate
away
that.
from this, yeah, like,
I am hopeful. I mean, like literally, like I like sent an email. Like, what time is it? 2:23 right now. I sent an email like an hour ago to set up an intake call with a local therapist
mhm.
at 2:30 tomorrow. like,
Okay.
like this is all moving rather fast, and it's because I'm like I had like a little breakthrough recently, and I'm like, wow, like this something needs to happen. Like
Hmm.
I have
Hmm.
to do something. Like I've I realized that there was no one I could talk, like you mentioned, like no one that anything is no one that anything anything that, oh my god, nothing that anybody says to you makes a dent in it. Like you
Or
can
having
sit there
all
and
the
you can like
synthesizer around you, or if your views go up, like none of that's going to change
no,
anything, because
nothing
if
changes it.
something,
No,
exactly,
mhm.
yeah. Hmm.
Yep. So I'm like, okay, well, it was specifically like the fact that like I realized that nobody I could talk to, I couldn't talk to anybody about this in a way that would help it land, like that would actually make a difference. And so I'm like, well, shit, like that's what therapists are for
Yep.
because they went to school to like learn to talk to people about this. And I'm like, I had, not to get too hard into it, but like, I came out to my partner about having the suicidal ideations, and it really hurt him because he was like, well, fuck, like, what about me? Like, what,
That's one
like,
of the darkest and worst parts about it, is like, you don't want to tell your partners because you may be worried about that, or you do tell them and that happens, and you can't, if they've never had that experience, you cannot really fully explain to them that, no, trust me, like you might be the thing that's actually keeping me from
Yeah.
going through with it. Trust me, you're not
Yeah.
doing anything to cause it, but you
Yeah.
also like, this is in here, you can't fix it, you know, like,
Yep.
and that's a hard thing because I always want to fix my loved ones when I hear they're in pain, you know, I want to fix them. So people do that. And that's a hard thing to try to get through to somebody. Like, listen, I appreciate the help, but all I really
Mm-hmm.
need is just you to be you. And that's what I told my wife.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, just keep being you. That's all you can do for me, you know? But yeah, I mean, it's a
Well, yeah,
hard
once you
topic.
realize that, once you realize that, like there are some things that even, the people that are closest to you as friends can't really fix for you and help you get
Mhm.
through. That's when you have two choices. You can either attempt to live with it, and you won't be able to. It will destroy you
Mhm.
and your
Mhm.
everything that you do. Like, it'll destroy your relationship with your job. It'll destroy your relationship with your partner. And then eventually it'll just destroy you. So it's like, okay, well, that's not really an option. So you better go fucking talk to somebody. And
Totally.
if
Absolutely.
I'm on some pills for anxiety. That was the one thing that I did get kind of worked on like a few years ago. But it sounds like I
Mhm.
need to go talk to somebody about some other pills.
I was
Or
so
just talk.
I
Just
just
talk.
would not take antidepressants because I had tried some in high school and some in college, and they just didn't ever like really work. And I
Yeah.
got super into meditation, and I was like, I can beat this, I can do it. And it
Mm,
was like this weird like pride thing of like, I don't want to have to rely on a pill. But eventually it just
sure.
got to the point where I was like, I can't keep doing this, not only to myself, but like this is affecting my wife. Like, we're married, we share a life, and this is affecting I have to do this for me and her. And God, I'm so glad that I found the right thing because it literally
Mhm.
changed my life. Like, I can't believe I used to think that everybody had suicidal ideation constantly and that they were just lying
Mm.
about it. Like, I believed. So yeah, like,
I I used to only make friends with people who had the fear. I called it the fear. And
well,
if I
did you
didn't
get that from Pulp, the band Pulp?
um no, I
They have a
there was
song
an
called
old
The Fear, and it's about
Oh,
this.
really? Is
Yeah,
it
and me and my
about
friend
that?
used to.
Oh
It's
shit.
about like depression and anxiety. Yes, totally.
There's a line in a Travis song uh where he says the fear is here, and it always stuck with me. But then there's the Lily Allen song, The Fear, that also is very much like that. I'm not
Hmm.
sure where it came from. It's just sort of like a healthy and pervasive terror of the of being alive. And I'm like,
Yeah, I called
I
it Doom.
I was
Yeah.
always friends with people that knew what that was.
Yep.
Like that's
Yep.
how I made friends with people.
Totally. Yeah. Trauma bonding.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. Cool. Well, anyways, so let's get back to YouTube. You mentioned,
Let's
you
trauma
asked
bond
like,
some more.
you was like, well, why are you, doing this kind of content? And I think it's kind of a Hail Mary. It's kind of like, I am, I am so afraid when it comes to making stuff for YouTube at this point, and I am so lost in terms of like what my point is on this platform that I'm just like spraying it all. Like I don't whatever.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
um that's all I can do at
Honest.
this
Yeah.
point.
Honestly, like, I, I'm not. This is going to be a weird thing to word. I am not stoked or relieved that to hear that you're feeling
Yeah.
this way lately. Um, but it does, like, I kind of was getting that vibe, and I think it's because I get that vibe when I'm in a similar
When you're
situation
like
as
really
you.
expressing yourself like
Yeah.
for to
And
yeah, yeah.
I've done it, and I have retracted from it because of fear of my
Yep.
own, so to see you doing it has been really inspiring me. So I just like,
Good.
I was just so excited, and yeah,
That's really
really
cool to
wanted to
hear.
root you on for this, and say,
The
fuck,
the
go
retraction
on.
aspect of it is where I'm kind of at right now. I was like, I was just in the process actually before we logged on, and I was actually kind of finishing it up a little bit while we were talking. Was like re-editing some of my thumbnails to be like to take my face out of them, because like I've had like some I had a really weird, I don't know, like I just had a really terrible interaction on Reddit, like where people in a Circle Jerk subreddit were like tearing into me. They didn't think I would ever see what they were talking about, and I
Yeah.
did, and it was just like, fuck, man, like it's those voices that you like. all the doubt voices that you have in your head, when you start making content, people actually start saying those things out loud.
Yep.
You can find them
and like you
saying
said,
those
they
things about.
don't think you're ever going to hear it. And sometimes they
Yeah.
say it to you as if you're not the person that made it. Like
Exactly.
you're
Yeah.
like some like entity that is like
You see some comment that it's like, oh, this guy thinks he's blah, blah, blah. I'm like, bro, where do you think the fucking comment goes?
yeah, like no shit. Like you get notifications on your phone, right? For your social media stuff. Like it works for us.
I turn everything off. I've actually
Yeah,
blocked Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and Reddit on my phone. And I only occasionally check in with them now on my computer. But after that altercation on Reddit, I was like, oh man, I gotta just step back from this stuff. So that retraction thing is for real, because like I don't know if you went through this when you were still trying to figure out your mental health, but when I was much younger, I had more of like a bipolar thing going on, like a manic depressive thing, where I'd have, if anybody is familiar with what that's like, it's like manic. You're like, boom, baby, I'm going to cover this whole fucking U2 album with this one synthesizer this weekend. And then you don't do it because can't fucking focus. And then like, you might get something done. Who the hell knows? And then you get depressed, and you get depressed, and you're like, wow, I'm a piece of shit. And so
exactly
that ebb and flow is terrible. If you can harness the manic phase, a lot of people will not seek treatment because the manic phase makes them feel really powerful and really va 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 voom. So that's what it was like when I was a kid. And like, I haven't really felt that ebb and flow. But maybe I'm just not as tuned in. Maybe it's not as visceral as it used to be, because it does seem to sort of be there sometimes. I'll put out a video that I worked like a week or so on. It'll be something that like I feel really, really strongly about. And then the way that content works is just like it goes out and then it disappears. And it doesn't matter anymore. It's like you might not ever get another comment on it again. It's like, and then you start like looking at it like, oh, wow, maybe people don't like that. Maybe it was just like, maybe this has no staying power. Like maybe the audience outside the main audience that like watches my stuff like doesn't care about it. And of course the platform makes that happen. Like it will do that to
absolutely.
your videos.
And think about how many people are out there putting stuff. I mean, right now, how many YouTube videos are being uploaded right now? So I think, speaking to that, I've had the exact same thing with the manic thing and everything. I think I have two thoughts on that, why it's different now. One, we've just experienced it. We're older. So we know the deal. We've been to the rodeo, but I think also, as you're younger, you just have way more you have more testosterone, and maybe just, there's just a lot more hormones going on and stuff. So it's a lot more emotionally based. But I do feel like when I feel that now, I've learned to trust that cue that I'm onto something. And when I say onto something, I talk about that version of success that I have really internalized as the most valuable to me, is when I have done the thing that I wanted it to do and I'm proud of it,
Yeah.
So I think, don't throw away that feeling of like, oh, I'm getting, because mania can be damaging and everything, but
as we get older, it's just energy. It's like, oh, I actually have energy to do something. I should probably do something.
I don't want to just play the new Zelda game today.
Oh, but I have been though.
Oh yeah, me too. It's fucking awesome. Well, shit, we're at an hour, and there is like so much more shit I wanted to talk to you about. I don't want to take up too much of your time, and
we can talk more if you want to. Like, it's all good.
Maybe a little bit more. I have to actually leave to drive up to teach a class here in not too long. But
okay, sure.
I just I want to also just say, like, I don't want to just sound like I'm just like. Is this what you wanted
this episode to be like? By the way, like this is
100%.
This is probably the weirdest fucking episode of this show that you've done.
Actually, a lot of the time when we get like super in the weeds of like mental health and really being, vulnerable and sharing this, I feel like those are the episodes that I get the most positive. Like you talking, you sharing this whole thing right now, as people are going to listen to it, you're going to resonate with a lot of people. And I think it's going to be very valuable. So yes, this is what I actually, this is better than what I was hoping. Okay. And this is why I wanted to talk to you, because I feel like I felt like I could see you in there in these videos, and I was like, I feel like I'm picking up on something that is familiar to me.
Yeah, it turns out you were right.
Yeah, and it's it's an interesting thing. So I also, I don't want to just sit here and pile on comments and seem sycophantic, but there's just one more thing I wanted to play, like just to kind of cap everything off, was like all these feelings that you're having and the swirling anxieties and the should I not and everything. I love that you kind of just buckled down and been like, you know what, I'm just going to take on these big companies and call them out for their fucking bullshit. So I'm kind of curious, like, when did that start with, like, like, I feel like you've been really flexing your activism and using your platform. And I know that's a thing where some people get dicey and can talk shit about that or something. But I feel like with your platform that you have and what you're doing, especially for the trans community, I think is like, I'm a cis white dude. So
same.
it doesn't mean as much from me, but I'm stoked to see it. I'm stoked to see somebody is, because those companies that you're talking about, they hear you. Like, if I mention it on just the podcast, maybe they trickle in, but they hear you for sure. And that's fucking brave.
It's
and
weird.
Does that freak you out at all? Or?
No, I don't really feel it like in a way that freaks me out. Like, for those of you that don't know, like I did a video, I did a few videos, but I think the one he's talking about right now is there's a company called Spitfire Audio that makes high quality sampled stuff, like sampled instruments, like you think about contact orchestras and shit like that. They've been around for a really long time, and they are well thought of. They are well considered in the industry, and they're a co-owner, co-founder, a guy named Christian Henson, tweeted a really weird tweet where he's like, "I'm coming out in full support of Glinner, Graham Linehan, and J.K. Rowling in terms of their views on transphobia, basically." And it's a whole thing. Like
I'll put the link in the show description to this video.
Okay,
because
sure.
It's great.
So I did a video about that. And I didn't see, like, some stuff happened. Like Henson, said he was stepping down from the company.
I was going to ask, was that even though he didn't really, it was more like a genuflection or a posturing thing.
Exactly.
But was that in response to your video?
It would not have happened, I don't think, without
I guess
a significant amount of pressure.
It was the response to
everything,
the response of your video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But he's still co-owner of the companies on paper, so he's still there. And they just started. I mean, they're putting out multiple things with Ableton. Spitfire is, so it's like, that was Ableton's got new Push 3 out, and they got this MPE shit, and like Spitfire's working with them on like two separate products. One of them's already out, and they're putting out another one, I think. I don't know. Anyways, it's like, I don't really feel like the needle moved all that much. I got with that and the videos about like the industry stuff. A lot of people in that had positive comments were from the industry, which was very interesting. And then a lot of the naysayers who were like, shut up, and like, you're a spoiled little bitch. Can't believe you want to get paid for this. Those are people that are not in the industry. So it's like, okay, well, I know who I'm going to, kind of pay attention to here in terms of like who I believe. However, since especially the industry one, where it's basically like, look, we're doing a job here. Like I just spent like 3 days shooting and editing a video about a goddamn MIDI to CV converter, like multiple situations. Like, I had to set up all these different patches, shoot all these things, like editing for 2 days. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing?
That's
and this is no
staring
shade
into the void until it stares back shit right there.
Yeah. I am not, and please, like, I actually really love the company that put this thing out. Like, if you
Absolutely. It
put
has
two and two
nothing to do
together,
with a piece of gear. Yeah. But
yeah, it's just like, holy moly, like this is insane. Like, I'm doing a ton of work, and if I had done that work for like, like the company that I used to work for as an employee, it would have been horrific because it would have been for some terrible corporate shit for Microsoft, and I probably would
mhm,
have had my edit like completely dissected, and um I would have had to like deal with producers and clients and all this stuff. And with this, what I do is what goes out, and they're usually really happy about that. So that's great, but
mhm.
like there's just the sheer like amount of work to product sort of thing to like really be able to show some of this stuff off is far beyond what I am making off of like people think ad revenue pays for this, AdSense pays for this. No, like y'all are fucking crazy. Like AdSense doesn't pay shit. Not with the kind of
Right. Yeah.
views
You're getting,
that I get
yeah.
on this. And I turn off I don't have like pre-roll ads on, like, because I don't want people to have to like, I don't know, like I don't want people to have to like wait for some terrible like loud ad about some weird shit to play before they have to watch one of my videos, because I feel like that could
Right.
just like turn them off and they won't want to watch a video at all.
Mhm.
So there I would love to like to do this stuff and have it have it like pay for my existence. But it is not possible right now. And I don't know if it'll ever be possible, because there's always going to be people that are just willing to make content. That's the thing. It's like,
Mhm. Mhm.
doesn't matter. Like, I could doesn't matter if I do it or not, because someone else is going to do it anyways. Like,
Right.
so it's kind of a weird place to be. And this is also feeding back into like the whole mental health thing. It's like, okay, well, I put myself in this position. I'm going to go ahead and say my piece on it. And that way, at least people know. And I don't know if it'll change anything, but at least I said what I needed to say about it.
Well, how many people wouldn't know about it? But with your reach, like we're in an, we're in a sub niche of a sub niche, really, like
Yeah, that's true. And
with
and
what
I
we're
have to
doing.
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. But as far as that goes, like you have you can cast a wide net, and if you feel like
Mhm.
there is some like actual injustice going on with people within our community, I feel like
Yeah.
that's right for you. It's righteous, quite
It
literally,
feels good.
you
It
to do
feels
it.
good
Yeah.
to try and do the right thing.
Mhm.
And with the trans community stuff, it's like it's so crazy to me how insane the transphobia has gotten, and
It's
how
it is
divorced from reality it
wild.
is. It's
Yes,
fucking
it is
crazy.
wild. Yeah. Ugh. Yeah, it's
Um,
fucking
and
insane.
I'm gay, so like I dealt with being ostracized and coming out, so to speak.
Mhm.
Like everybody who is queer has to kind of like navigate two growing ups. Kind of they
Totally, yeah.
they yeah, like you grow up before you realize you're queer, and then you grow up again after after you realize you're queer.
Mhm.
And it can be a lot of work, and
Ugh, I can't even
none of
imagine,
these
yeah.
people who are dealing with this are like trying to fuck with anybody. Like I've known a lot of queer people of various kinds throughout my years, and like everyone's just like trying to figure their shit out.
Mhm.
And especially trans people. Like it's
Mhm.
just like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, fuck
Yeah.
fuck you. Because the problem isn't just like, it's not just trans people. Like, it's not just about trans people. It's about anybody trying to find their way in this world in a way where they're like trying to like be authentic to themselves. Because I don't
Mhm.
think that the normal like way of being anymore is working for us as a society. Like, I don't think that
Yeah.
the system that we're
That's
in is working for us. It's not healthy. And
no, it's
so
gonna implode for sure.
it's, yeah. And I think that if we can empower people to feel confident that their feelings and their their needs are valid, as opposed to like kind of shoving them away and ignoring them because like it's not good for the system to feel that way, then
Mhm.
maybe we can have slowly like build up enough people to have some kind of systematic change. or at least build up
Right.
enough people to like, bring the guillotines to the Capitol. I don't fucking know what we need at
Right?
this
No,
point.
totally. No, yeah. And I mean, I think also with the you should keep politics out of this or whatever. It's like, okay, maybe like policy on like who pays for patching up the roads, but like it's not just like the oppression of like people, like we just don't want them to have these, like it's actually like an attack, and the language that's being used right now against the trans community from the right side, and the Jordan Petersons and all these whack jobs, is one of violence. It's one that is inviting the person hearing it to, take action
Engage
on
in
it.
violence.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's where I feel like, yeah, it's fine to talk about this on a synthesizer video if one of the things that I'm talking about, it's related to, because it's this giant company that's working with, and here, like you said, like everything, the other video you did recently where it's like everything's trans. It's like,
oh sure,
this whole music community is like some of the most genius fucking people in our music community are trans people. And it's like, I just feel like that's a huge disconnect. It's like, okay, sure, if you feel this way, like, why did you go and tweet it? Like when you have, like, that guy can't be so dumb to not realize the amount of connection his job has
it's
to
complicated.
the trans community. Yeah, I don't.
So yeah, Christian Henson, like, yeah, I mean, like
he knows, he has to know.
My dude, like you employ through Spitfire so many creatives, like so many, like the orchestras you work with, like all, like, I mean, and when I did that video, I showed like he had, I tried to, how do I put this? That was the point of the video, was to show that, like, look, you coming out like this has already impacted people who are just like making creative content for you. Like you have already shit on your professional community by doing this. There's another British composer who I recently discovered. What's his name? Hold on a second. Stephen Hilton. This guy, Stephen Hilton, he is like, his Wikipedia is fucking nuts. Like, he has done a ton of really big Hollywood soundtracks, and now he's like, got like a merch store that says like shirts that say like anti-woke on them, and he's like retweeting like everything regarding the playbook that the right is having, including like LGBT are groomers, trans are groomers. What's Greta Thunberg is a thumb, just like everything. And I'm like, why are the British people losing their minds? Like what turns somebody from having this like incredibly like artistic career where you're a composer and you're connected to this community, and then like something happens and you lose your mind. Now, it is more complicated than that. I do not know Christian, and I do not know Stephen. So there is a possibility here of, some personal tragedy in their lives that has caused them to have these thoughts, maybe. So I don't want to dismiss their, mental health as a thing. I don't want to reduce them to objects, but at the same time, the damage that's done through these actions that they're now taking on a regular basis, I think kind of outweigh like that consideration at this point.
Yeah. And I feel like also something that's just like, well, because I want to acknowledge one thing, like, I'm saying like, absolutely, you should be able, I'm stoked that you're speaking up on this, and, but they in their heads are feeling the same way that we're feeling about this, but they think we're the crazy people. So I want to acknowledge that that's a thing. Obviously they're the crazy ones, but they would say the exact same thing. But we're
and they're 100% convinced that
totally.
There's also a lot of these people that don't believe what they're saying. Like Matt, people like Matt Walsh.
Matt Walsh.
I don't believe
absolutely.
he believes what he's saying.
I mean, we Tucker Carlson, they're all on record now.
Exactly.
I mean, none of these guys believe this shit. Like, I totally agree.
Like you said, when you're calling for like, when the results of what you say are basically a task, like you're doing stochastic terrorism. You're basically saying,
oh yeah, for
like,
sure.
man, it'd be a shame if, like, there were no more of this kind of people in the world. Haha, wink,
I
wink.
think Matt Walsh
Like,
is doing it less like
subtly anymore. Oh
covertly.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
he's just
yeah,
outright saying this shit.
yeah.
Like
He is, and on the platform that Elon Musk let it go by. It's God. I hate this shit. I hate this shit so fucking much.
I know.
I hate it so much.
I like hate watch this stuff. Like I
Oh
I've been
no!
keeping.
Don't do that.
Well, no, I don't. No. I don't watch their. No, I guess I don't hate watch. Well, it's actually not hate. It's the opposite. I follow the downfall of all of these terrible. Like it seems like a lot of these really, really terrible people are all kind of slowly starting to have like a downfall. I mean, look at with Trump, Andrew Tate, like all these people, and I'm kind of like not hate watching, but watching with glee is like, look,
the Schadenfreude.
We've caught them all. Yeah, and also just like you said, because I've always thought this, like none of these guys believe what they're saying. It's getting them to get money, but they're talking to impressionable young people mostly who are falling for it, or older people who unfortunately don't have the media literacy skills necessary to navigate our very fucking complicated and connected world now. That's continuing to become more and more so. So like that's been like the thing that icks me out the most is like, fuck, these guys don't believe this, but they just know there's an audience for it. But like to just like they're falling one by one. Steven Crowder, like all these fucking pieces of shit. It's like, but the shitty thing is with today's world, they're like, well, yeah, that's because Soros is like sticking the New World Order on them. And, it's just like, fuck.
Oh my fucking God. Yeah. With Trump specifically, like, he's slipped out of so much accountability legally that at this point, it's like when people are in jail or when people are completely deplatformed and or disgraced, in such a way that they are no longer able to use a position to spread the kind of hate that they are, I will, I'm not going to rejoice because we got a lot of work to do, but like, that's when I'll be like, fucking good. Like we'll see, there's a lot of
Andrew Tate's going to die in a Romanian prison. So that's pretty cool.
Surprising. Honestly, I'm pretty surprised about that. I really expected him to just be out and about, pretty soon, but yeah, I don't really want to talk about this anymore. Like
I know. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We don't even have to go down this route. I can even edit some of this stuff out, but like,
it's okay.
I think it just speaks to the fact that there needs to be the opposite side out.
Yeah.
There needs to be the resistance.
I became very hardcore leftist in a lot of my ideologies. Specifically, like, once I had a name for them through content creators on YouTube that make content that speaks to this. Yeah, and I'm eternally grateful for all of them. And because of that, there's a blueprint. It's like, oh well, here's how you can like, well, here's content that helped me get to where I am, like, and think about this stuff. Like, oh, I can make content like that too. To me, like a good de-radicalization video or a good here's what the words and names for the philosophies behind what you're feeling. Here's a small introduction to Marxism. Here's a history of why this went wrong or this went wrong. And here's a name for the philosophy that has already been talked about that you could be feeling. And here's the rebuttal to it. All that stuff is so fantastic. And it can have an amazing amount of power, especially when it's delivered with a little hint of personality, right? Like that's why BreadTube, or what this is all colloquially referred to, works, is because it's delivered with this personality. And I can't turn my channel into that, but I can, if there's something like these subjects that we're talking about that I think are relevant to this world that I see being radicalized. I see a lot of people
absolutely.
Like our synthesizer space has some nastiness to it. It's like misogyny and homophobia and transphobia and just like it's got a nasty little underbelly, and I don't really think that should be the case. I don't think that the industry that makes musical instruments should have even like a tiny whiff of that bullshit involved in it. So
totally agree.
if I can help contribute to that, then yeah, I'm going to do that.
I think that is an excellent place to end part 1 of Red Means Recording on Modular Modcast, because we have I like to get to know.
Maybe we'll talk about modular next time.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about synthesizers or something. But no, this is definitely honestly, I wanted to have this conversation recorded or not. After watching this stuff, I was like, oh, I want to chat with Jeremy about this, because
I love turning social interactions into content. That's my favorite thing.
I actually do too. And it's, I do too. I just like creating shit constantly. So let's become best friends, but we'll document the whole thing.
Okay, sure.
All right. Sound good.
All right, that's our show. Thank you so much for coming back to Podular Modcast. Thank you to all the sponsors, For a Mess, Patchworks Seattle, After Later Audio, Novation. Thank you to Basil and Casper for sending over the Aikido and the Basil. I love both of those modules. If you need a VCA mixer, look no further than the Aikido. It's got so many tricks up its sleeve. It's nice and compact. It sounds great. It is my primary output module now for not just my remote performance kit, but just it kind of goes in every system that I build whenever I want to do something. This week's secret phrase or words are wood lacquer painting. Until next week.